hang with me here. I think you'll find it interesting. Admittedly, I'm thinking out loud, but follow me and see if you think the same way. I'd like to know, are you thinking what I'm thinking about power? You know, in the Tour de France, don't stop there, it goes further, Olympics too, and other sports, and just general fitness and health. In the Tour de France, they measure the rider's output, his power output, in watts. Well, in other ways as well, but watts is one way, one power measurement. And as we're speaking of power measurement, we can talk about many different kinds of power measurement. The ability to lift something. There are horsepower when it comes to engines and motors and the like. And there's also power as in power lifting, but there's power when it comes to calories or BTUs or heat energy. And so power is measured in a lot of different ways. Sun panels have power, and wind, which you're hearing a lot of probably right now. Power. A powerful wind. It could be power in a storm. It could be power in the electrical grid. Power can be measured in a lot of ways. But maybe you've noticed there are many different body types when it comes to athletes. Well, when it comes to people, full stop. And the body types usually show you a little bit about what somebody does or could do. And so I have particularly long arms, and for years that's made me quite an adept swimmer. Swimmers generally have long arms. And I remember my favorite American football player of all time, Walter Payton, and he had thighs like bigger than most people's waists because he had so much power in those thighs. He trained his thighs with that power, with that strength. And in fact, that's the way muscles respond. They respond to the way they're trained. So someone in the Tour de France, those guys are skinny and lean. They're carrying as little weight as possible, but they still have to have, generally speaking, the power to make it. Now, they got to make it about 3,000, 2,000 kilometers in a month on a bicycle. Whereas a sprinter, like Usain Bolt or some of the others, or a swimmer, they've got to do a different task, so they've got different muscles. And there's a huge difference between usable muscles and muscles to look at. So a bodybuilder, I'm not sure what those muscles are good for in general, but they're not necessarily evidence of great strength, because the strongest men in the world, whenever there's a competition of them, their body type is quite different from a bodybuilder. So what they can do with their muscles and how they train their muscles are different. So that brings up power and usefulness. And there's a lot of power in a lot of things, but the question is it useful? And you might be training something. Everybody was just always showing off six-packs. And yes, core power is very necessary, but is a defined, chiseled stomach necessary? It's interesting how few athletes actually have that. It might not be actually useful for very many things. Yeah, the question comes, what do you need or I need our muscles for, or our power for, or our staying power, or our strength? What are we training for? What would help us? What do we want to accomplish? And in fact, the same body is not necessarily best for all tasks. You know, if you're a believer, if you follow Jesus, then you've been given a gift, and you have a specific task, and you need to be training that. And maybe you're just a bodybuilder in the body. That is, you think you look good to what's expected, but the truth is you can't actually accomplish much. You don't have what it takes to be strong, or to endure, or to make it through, or to do a particular job. It's funny, there are farmers who aren't necessarily well defined, but boy, they can do certain tasks. You wouldn't believe, because they're fine-tuned from every day doing a particular task. And so they may not look strong to the average person, or they may look really strong, or they may look a little overweight. But the question is, what are they asking their body to do on a regular basis, and is that useful? The last month I've been trying to do about 100 push-ups a day. I was challenged actually by a few friends. They didn't specifically challenge me, but when they told me they were doing it a year or so ago, I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do that. So I got around to doing it, and this month I've been doing it. Pretty much the whole month. And that's every day, 100 push-ups or more. Some days I did 200. But the question is, of what value is that? What can it do for me? What can it help me with? How will I benefit? And is that power useful to what I've been called to do? I've been working on chin-ups too. In general, I've been working on my health and recovery from the surgery and the ability to walk, and I love to walk. But we have to always ask ourselves the question, why? Is it useful? To what benefit is it? Will that help us in the long run? And I want to ask you about your character and my character and our discipline and the things that we're building and training in our life. And what it made me think is, Jesus, the man, he trained himself to be obedient. He learned obedience. He grew in wisdom and stature as a young man. He decided to give his will over and accept the Father's will. The question is, are you training the right things? Are you building the right muscles? Spiritual character, spiritual discipline. Are you training it? It takes repetitive motion. So that's what I've been thinking about power. How powerful really are you? And how will you know if you're powerful enough? Well, you'll have to be tested somehow. Are you open for a test? I wonder.